afterwards. Okay, so here we have the house. I'm just going to delete the stairs here. And I'm just going to, I want to talk about components. Now, you can see at the top here, the architecture tab. We've got all this stuff: walls, doors, windows, components, all the basic things that you need to slap a building together quickly. The component button gives you two options. It allows you to either place a component or model in place. So place a component is quite simple. If I say place a component, for example, I've got a countertop with sink, which is the one that's already set up as the basic one in the template file. I can come over here and change it to whatever I want. We've got some base cabinets, we've got a desk, we've got some parking spaces, we've got some trees, bits and pieces over here. So that's one thing. The simple way to get a piece of anything into Revit is to place a component. If you don't have what you want in the project already, we can press Insert, Load Family, and in the DANIDU template we have a certain amount of components in here. So we could go into, for example, furniture. There's a few beds and so on. So if I wanted to put this sofa in here, it would just come in like that. And then when it's in the project, we say place a component, and the sofa is there. So we place a sofa in the middle of the garden there like that. So that's kind of an easy way to get stuff into the project. The other thing we have on the components is if I press Insert, we have this search box up here, and this is linked to the internet. So it's linked to Autodesk's own library of stuff. So if I type, for example, let's see, sofa in here, it opens up Autodesk Seek, which has got a lot of sofas that are from different manufacturers. We talked a little bit about this before, so we got some design classics in here, which you can just download and insert it to Revit, which means that they can be scheduled and they will have all the information required to to schedule them out and to price the project. So that's the simple part. And the other thing, of course, is we have BIM Object, which I talked to you about before, which also allows you to browse different projects in here. So there's lots of opportunities to take products off the internet and insert them directly into your project. If it doesn't crash, here we go. BIM Object.
Where did you get the BIM Object?
Yeah, if you don't have BIM Object, let me just close it down. You can always come up to, you see this X at the top here? There's a kind of X at the very top.
Oh, yeah.
Exchange apps. If you click that, that opens out, it's basically like an app store for Revit. And you can find lots of stuff in there. And I think BIM Object is always one of the most popular ones because it's actually the go-to, it's turned into, in the last 2 years, the go-to place for, do I have a connection to the internet here? The go-to place for all that kind of stuff, products from different companies. Even if you go into a Danish window manufacturer and you try and download their Revit model, they'll point you towards BIM Object because that's where they put it. So here it is here. You can basically just click on it.
Which one is that?
BIM Object. And just press download, and when it's downloaded, you just install it. And there are some sign-in details you need to fill in. As usual, on all these things, they make you sign in and give them their email address and so on. And then you need to restart Revit, and then it will just turn up as a tab at the top like this. Okay. So if you're looking for a roof window, of course you can make one yourself, but the easy way would be to go to I don't know, one of these guys.
I tried to look, but
There isn't that much out there. Yeah. So BIM Object. If I go to browse, let's just see if this works. Because the internet seems to be very slow or something. Maybe I need to sign in.
is this all getting recorded as well?
Mm-hmm. That's your Saturday night taken care of. Where's it gone? Okay. Hello, hello. Okay, so let's just try roof window and see what it says. So there's a load of them in here. You know, maybe something like that is what you're looking for, or something like that with some kind of a slope. So you can download them and just insert them directly. The beauty of that is that when you go to specify, when we get into scheduling the project, it'll just be there and it'll fit in the schedule automatically. So that's kind of the benefit of that. Okay, so let's, yeah?
This Vim object, can I like download, like Revit City is the same?
Revit City. So I'm going to delete this couch. We don't want a sofa in the garden there, so I'm going to level 1 here. So here's the beautiful stairs we made last week, the last time I was here. It's a little bit, maybe it's a little bit pompous for a little house like that, but never mind. So let's say we want to put a curtain, not a curtain, we want to put a kitchen in the corner here, okay? So often the easy way to set up a kitchen or something like that is actually to use 2D lines, first of all, just to lay it out. If anybody's ever made a kitchen, you know, you need to lay things out in a plan before you start getting into 3D. So I often use just the annotate tool. So I press annotate here. I have something called detail lines. And detail lines they're just lines that exist in the individual view. They don't exist in 3 dimensions at all. If I went into the 3D view, they would disappear. But they allow us to set things out in 2 dimensions as a kind of a drafting idea. So I could come in here and say detail line, and then we get all these options. I'm going to say, well, I want it to be more or less around here, like that. So you can see that there's a line. I don't know if you can see it on the board there, but if I roll the cursor over it, there's a line behind. So then we can just do things like select it and use the offset tool. And offset just takes something and then moves it parallel, just like that little video was showing on the screen there. You're going to offset. And over here we get a chance to say, well, how far do we want to offset it? So I know that a standard kitchen is 600 millimeters deep. I'm going to type 600. And we'll leave it on, we'll switch off copy because we don't necessarily need to have those lines, both of those lines. We just want the one further out from the wall. Switch off copy. And then you can see that as I roll the cursor on top of the line that I made, it starts to make a kind of a ghost line. That's where it's telling us it's going to put the line now. It's going to offset it by 600 millimeters. So I go to offset, and then I can come over here and offset. And it's actually made a line that's kind of a guideline for the kitchen that we want. So we kind of know where we want it to put it now. And we could, if we wanted to, just press DL, which is the shortcut for detail line, and just maybe draw the ends without measuring it too much or worrying too much about the measurement, just to maybe. We haven't really thought about this design so much, so we're just making an L-shaped kitchen, and maybe we'll put a sink here, a cooker there, and maybe a refrigerator down the end or something. I'm not going to worry about it too much, just for the example. So now we've got the kind of guideline for the kitchen. We can start to insert a component for the sink. So if I go up to insert, and I'm going to go to load family, like I said earlier, and we should have an option for what have we got in here? Plumbing fixtures. So we've got kitchen sink, we've got showers, we've got lots of bits and pieces in here that are loaded in with the Dan EDU template. So let's just use this standard kitchen sink for the moment. I'll say open. Okay, it's already in it, so it doesn't really matter. Just say overwrite the existing version. So then it's in the project, in the background somewhere. It's in the memory of the project. So then we can go to architecture, component, place a component, and the sink turns up, and then we can press space to orient it whichever way we want to put it, like that. So I'm just going to put it over here, more or less there. Now, you can see that if I select it like that, we have some options. We can flip it if we wanted to, or we can flip it. It doesn't make any difference on this one because it's a completely symmetrical sink, but we could flip it whichever way we want it to be. But we also get this temporary dimension line here, and the temporary dimension line allows us to actually decide how far we want it away from the end here, the closest line. So if I said 900, for example, it will actually move the sink specifically 900 millimeters away from the end here. So we have control over the whole positioning of the thing. Okay. Now, if I press WT, just to get a 3D view going, let's just close this one down. Close this one down. WT, and I'm going to use the section box just to go down into the kitchen, all the way down, like that, rotate it around. So at the moment you can see that in 3D all we have is this sink kind of floating in space. Let me just switch that to hidden line. Why is it showing shaded? That's showing hidden line. Whoops. Pressing the wrong buttons here. Hidden line. There we go. So you can see it's just floating in space here. But in the plan view, we still have these guidelines. So what we can do is we want to turn those guidelines into a kitchen counter, an actual table at that level. So what we can do, this is our first chance to actually make a model in place component, because a kitchen counter always has to be formed, for the room it goes into. You can't just, you can buy them off the shelf if they're very simple, but if you're making any kind of complex kitchen, it has to be made directly for the kitchen itself. So if I say model in place, it's asking me, well, what category do I want to put it into? I think I'll put it into casework, which is just like an overall category for cupboards and stuff like that. Press OK. I'll call it kitchen counter. And a kitchen counter is the simplest kind of model. So it's an extrusion. So an extrusion is a shape where you draw the shape on the plane that you're drawing it on, and then you just give it a thickness. And basically that's how you make a table. It's simple as that. So if I say extrusion here, I can just use this line tool to go around the sketch that I've made on the ground floor. And you can see that in the 3D view, it's also drawing it in the 3D view as I do it, until I close the entire counter like that. So there's the shape of the counter drawn as the shape for the extrusion. Everybody with me? I'll stop after this and then we'll take some questions. Once I've drawn the shape, over here I have the option to say, well, where does the extrusion start and where does it end? I want it to end at 900 millimeters, which is a standard size for a counter to start with. Anyway, and I want to make it 40 millimeters deep, so I'm going to start it at 860. So now we know that the extrusion, it's going to be in plan. It's going to be in this position. It's going to start at 860 millimeters above the ground level, and it's going to stop at 900 millimeters above ground level. Okay. We could give it a material here if we wanted as well. I won't worry about that for the moment. But if we're happy about that, I'll just say accept, and then you should have something like this. You should have an element like that in your project. Okay. And I can finish the model. And it would look like that. Okay? I'm just going to pause this. Going. So then, once we've done that, you can see that it's not perfect because if I just accept this, if I accept that model, you can see that actually whatever this kitchen counter is made of, it's actually going right through the sink, which is not ideal for the functions of a sink, you might say. That was a joke. Anyway. So what we'll do is we need to modify the extrusion to cut it out. Okay. So I'm going to select the extrusion again. I'm going to say edit in place. Once we say edit in place, we can select it and say edit extrusion. Okay. So then we can actually add a rectangle. We can do two things here. We can either pick the lines like this, pick the edges that we want to cut like that, or we could just draw a rectangle around it. Either way, it works the same. And if I accept that, you can see that the extrusion now has cut an opening for the sink itself. Now remember, this is not just a visual thing, it's actually calculating the amount of material that's being used as well. So it's coming up with an idea as to how much of whatever this material is, which is somewhere in the project and can be scheduled out later. So it's not just a visual thing, okay? Okay, so the other thing we can do in here, now we're in here, we can come back into components again. Remember, everything is about generic components today. So I got components, place a component, and some of the automatically loaded stuff in here, we've got some kitchen cabinets actually. So we've got some base cabinets here. So I can just select base cabinet, and you can see that I have the option to just take a cabinet and put it here, and I can put another one. Well, we can actually just select them and copy them across once we put a few in there. Let's say we've got one here, here, and well, why are they so weird? Anyway, I need to change the wireframe here. There we go. So these cabinets that come as standard in the templates, you can also go on to BIM object, or you can go on to Revit, where you insert the other elements and download real kitchen cabinets from real manufacturers, which will come with all the parametric information that you need to use them. Okay. So you can continue around and fill in the kitchen cabinets here. We can also come in and say place a component. And we can go down and find where else? There's one down the bottom here, upper cabinet. So we can come in here. And this is what's called a face-based family, which means that it will stick automatically to a wall or a floor or anything that has a flat surface, but it won't sit in space like other things will. So if I come in here, for example, it's trying to stick it to the wall. If I come in here, it won't allow me to stick it down unless I put it on the wall here. So it's so you can put in as many of those as you want, and you can see that they come in automatically at the level that they're programmed in to come in for. Okay. So then again, you can just come in here and copy them across, and you can gradually start to populate your kitchen with all the information that you need for whatever you want to do. Okay.
Where did you find that one? Was it in place component?
So let's get into the materials a little bit. So if I turn on the realistic view here, this is what our kitchen looks like at the moment. It's kind of different kind of colors. But let's say we want to give this a material. If I select this extrusion, I can select edit in place, and then you need to select it again. And then you have the option to change the material. So the material here is set to by category. If I select this and click this little button here, I can just type in, let's say we want to put some tiles on there or something. Let's see what they have in for tiles. Tile mosaics. Let's say we'll make it mosaic. So it's going to look something like that. Again, this is not a taste exercise. This is just pure mechanical exercise. No. No, I'll show you what you're doing there. Wait a second. I'll just cancel this. You press this button, this tiny button over here. Oh, can you even see that? This button over here. This button is to do with parameters. We're not getting into parameters till next semester.
But it's asking me for parameters.
Yeah. So escape out of that. Click on the actual word. Click on by category.
Okay.
And when you click on that, you get another little button here.
Yeah.
And that's the button you press. That's actually how you change the material. So I'm going to use this mosaic one. Use render appearance. You don't have to use mosaic. You can just choose a tile. I mean, yeah. My one is going to look like this. Okay.
That's fancy.
So I press OK. And you can see straight away it fills in the material on the kitchen like that. Okay. So then we can just accept that, finish the model, and you can effectively go around and just do the same exercise on all the elements in there. Now let me just turn up the brightness here so it's easier to see. Turn up the lighting. Up.
Why is the like screen so bad? It's very hard to read.
It's quite small for such a big classroom. You're right. Yeah, it is. Okay.
So I need like
Okay, so so now we have this this basic counter set up. So what I want to show you now is how to kind of refine it a little bit, because it's just a square element, which is fine. But usually you have some kind of edging on a table. You know, you have to take care of the edges, because the edges are very important. They're always very important on any kind of design situation. So we want to have some way of controlling what these edges, how they work. So again, we go back into components. So architecture, component, model in place. We'll give it the same casework, and I'll just call it counter edge. So you can see that everything is grayed out except for these options up here. Now, the one we've used already is the one called extrusion, which is a very simple one. You draw a shape and then you give it a thickness. The one I want to use now is something called sweep. And a sweep works in kind of the same way, but instead of drawing the shape on the ground and extruding it, you actually draw the shape wherever you want it to be, and then you just give it a path. You actually define where you want it to go. So it's a little bit like we were playing with the wall stuff in the previous ones. So I press sweep. The first thing I'm going to do is pick a path. So I want it to run all the way around the kitchen counter. So I'm going to say pick path. Roll out a bit. I'm going to choose this one, and we can move over to this one, and let's just take it all the way around the edge that way. So whatever we draw now is going to run all along that line there. The other thing that happens is once I start that, you can see that it actually sets up a reference plane here. And what that reference plane, this actually acts as our drawing board now. So we can come in here and draw any shape we want on here, and it would just, extrude it around the path we've decided on. So I'm going to accept that path. So I'm just going to edit the profile. So edit profile. So now I'm in here, and you can see we've got the usual drafting tools that Revit has. So I can come in here and let's put a curve in there. So I'll just say put the start here. I'll put the end down here. I'll take a curve out, and then I'll go back and draw a straight line like that. So I've kind of made that kind of half circle shape. Yeah. So we're going to have a curved edge for this counter is the idea there. Now, before I accept it, I'm actually going to give it a material. So I want it to be the same material as this mosaic, because I want the mosaic to actually wrap around the edge of the counter. So I'm going to select material. Mosaic is still selected. I'll just press OK. And if I accept it, then you get something like that.
you do a straight line between that curve thingy.
Yeah.
I'll just pause that again. Okay. We then finish the model. Now you can see there's still a kind of a join between these two elements, but we can actually select them and press this join button here. Just cancel that. And then we can Oh no, maybe we can't with this one. It works with different some things, but not with others. Obviously, it doesn't work with these two different types of sweep. Okay, forget about that bit. Okay, is that simple enough? Is it all, more or less simple enough? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So effectively, components, and these are kind of generic things, are used for anything that are either that can be inserted from a external source, or can be formed to be specific to the area that you're in. So the other thing to think about is that I've only touched on two of them at the moment. I've only touched on, let me just say, I've only touched on extrusion and sweep, because those two are the ones that are most used. The other ones work more or less the same way, but I don't really want to spend too much time on them because you rarely ever use them. And by the time you get to the point where you have to use them, you're already so good that you figured it out anyway. But a swept blend is an interesting one that you can use in more architectural things, where you actually can get two shapes to modify together. So they make an actual shape between two different orthogonal shapes. The revolve is for making a 3D shape that's just rotated around an axis. You know, so for making anything that's more or less circular. They all follow the same more or less rules. And the blend is the same as a swept blend, except it tends to be in the vertical planes. Okay, but they all more or less follow the same, you know, steps. So if you need to get into complex shapes like that, you can do it as well. Cancel that model.